Would you look at that? We're back. It wasn't 6 months. It was actually just about a week. We are here now that the Four Nations kind of wrapped up. We saw Canada beat the United States in overtime, drew more eyes than I think NHL had said in decades for a game. So clearly something was working with that. But we're going to kind of shift gears this week. I want to talk a little bit about basketball now that the NBA All-Star break is over. Games are back on. Regular season is continuing. We're really not quite in the second half. It's more like the last third of the season. But there was a monumental trade, if you heard, on February 6th. Actually, two of them we'll talk about. But for the first one, we're going to talk about the Luka Doncic trade from the Dallas Mavericks over to the LA Lakers. It was kind of heralded as maybe the most seismic NBA trade in years, if not decades. It was something where people were wondering who won the trade, why did the trade happen. There are still stories coming out about it kind of happened in the dead of night. Only one or two teams were called. All of a sudden it happened. Players didn't know. Apparently executives didn't even know that the trade was going to happen. So that was something that I think is going to change the trajectory of these two franchises pretty severely. We're about 3 weeks in now from this trade happening, or almost a month. You see Luka's putting up 30-point games now for the Lakers. Tonight, actually, the Lakers are going to play against the Mavericks, which should be a pretty interesting game, I think. But the second trade, just to kind of touch on, is Jimmy Butler getting traded away from Miami over to Golden State. I think both of them are obviously stars in their own right, all-stars. Both of them have finals appearances with both Miami and the Mavericks. But while I think the Jimmy Butler trade was a little bit more expected, it was something, clearly he was pushing for it. I think the Luka trade caught everybody off guard. But I want to talk about a little bit why it happened, how the two trades are similar, and what these franchises are looking for when they move these all-star, all-NBA caliber players. I think in this era of player empowerment, it's not unheard of for superstars to kind of force their way in or out of teams. And Jimmy Butler had a breakdown with Pat Riley. It was so severe that he didn't really see a way to continue being a member of the Heat. So gets suspended a couple times, various reasons, walks out of practice, is late for a plane, whatever, these sort of things. And all of a sudden, he's pushing. They have this kind of battle through the media about these stories that are coming out. And then all of a sudden, Jimmy Butler is traded to the Warriors. Now, I think for him, getting to compete with the Draymond and Steph Curry and having Coach Kerr, potentially that was an upgrade for him. But definitely something that he clearly wanted, and the Heat did not want to lose him without getting some sort of compensation. Now, he's been doing well. The Warriors have been doing well. They are now potentially pushing for a play-in spot, if not maybe a top 6 spot in the West. But I would say the early returns on that trade are successful for the Warriors. Heat, you're going to look at, you're just trading a disgruntled star that probably wasn't going to play, or wasn't going to play at least to his best ability. So I would say, again, you probably are looking at success from Miami as well. I think the Luka trade is totally different. Right? Luka is genuinely an All-NBA or an MVP candidate every year since his first year in the league. He's not even 26 years old. Most people would say he's a top 3, top 5 player in the league already. When you're looking across what his 7 years in the NBA have been, he's averaging 28, 8-8, and he's been top 10 in MVP voting for the last 5 years. The only year that he wasn't top 10 was his rookie year, when he was almost unanimously voted as Rookie of the Year. So what makes you want to trade somebody like that? And there's been a couple of different reasons, or people, I should say, that have opinions on it. But the only one that really matters is Nico Harrison, the general manager of the Mavericks, because at the end of the day, it is widely believed that it was his decision to move Luka on. But when you look at why, you kind of have to go back a little bit. Last year, Mavericks made the finals, and it was Luka's first time making it that far into the playoffs. And yes, they lost in 5 games to the Boston Celtics, but he posted 3 triple-doubles in those 5 games. So he was doing everything he could on offense. But as much as his offense is widely believed to be prolific across the league, the claim that he was a little lackadaisical defensively, or his durability and how often he's injured. Maybe that is what contributes. But when you're looking and really dig down into those numbers, Luka's right about league average. He's also played over 60 games in every season in the NBA, up until this one, obviously, where he has had some injury problems, and he's going to come up well short of those 60. But I think that those claims are probably baseless when you're looking actually at the numbers. I think when you're trying to use the eye test, yeah, you see, he gets blown by sometimes. You can tell maybe he's not the most be focused defensively. He's definitely not known for his defensive ability, but I don't know if it was bad enough that you had to get rid of the guy and he was unplayable. Right? You hear about these guys, the Jalen Brunsons or the Trae Youngs, who are so good offensively, but the team almost has to compensate for them defensively because they're just not up to snuff. Steph Curry had a couple years like that earlier in his career, but either the player improves defensively or the coach has to kind of tweak what that roster looks like. If you have to hide them, essentially, then everybody else has to step up and take a little bit more of that responsibility on. And that doesn't mean you get rid of a top 3 or a top 5 MVP candidate. That just means you got to do a little bit more work around him. So I don't necessarily agree that his defense or his durability was really the reason. There were also rumors about his weight and that he was ballooned up to 270, I think was the number that they were floating around, which would have made him like the 7th or 8th heaviest player in the NBA. But again, that doesn't, I don't know if that's something that can't be fixed. That seems like either a nutritional issue, he's just not taking it seriously. But I don't, again, do you move on from somebody with that much talent just because of that? I'm not sure. Even if he was that heavy and he's still putting those numbers up, to me personally, I'm okay with keeping him. You can work around that. But I think more what it came down to was change of ownership and, like we said, the guy's name, Nico Harrison, potentially maybe just not getting along. So Mark Cuban, who was the former majority owner of the Mavericks, he was totally surprised by the trade. There were a couple quotes that came out. He was a huge fan of Dirk Nowitzki. Nowitzki was there for 21 years. He's kind of like the Maverick, especially of the last generation. And he saw Luka as kind of like that next guy, that next franchise guy. Get drafted there, or I guess traded after you get drafted, and then see out your career, see how you can make the finals, hopefully win a title, and then retire and be the guy. They'll build a statue for you. And I think even though Cuban is now a minority owner, for him to kind of make those comments makes me think that this trade wasn't something that was so widely accepted by everybody at the front office. But at the end of the day, you only need really one person's decision making, and that's the general manager. So Nico Harrison comes in, and some of the quotes that he has said afterwards are, I would say, scathing. He, quote unquote, is defense wins championships. So all of a sudden you're bringing up defense. That makes me think that he wanted Anthony Davis to improve the defense that he thought Luka was lacking. So if you're trading for a guy who is known for that, again, a center or a large power forward, you're thinking, hey, this guy's going to help complete our team. That means you're trading away something that you didn't think was going to help you compete. So for me, that's kind of calling out Luka on the defensive side. But again, like I said, I don't know. There's ways to mask that. There's ways to help your team still keep that guy who can do special things on the court offensively. And even if you do have to compensate everybody else a little bit on the defensive side, I still think that's worth it. We've seen teams make it to the finals. You've seen Luka himself make it to the finals. Why not give him another shot? Now, time will tell on who kind of quote-unquote won the trade. Luka hadn't played since close to Christmas time. He was out with an injury, and now all of a sudden Anthony Davis, who they traded for, is now out with an injury. So I would say that's bad karma. But I don't know if maybe the Lakers do make a run. Maybe the Mavericks turn around and all of a sudden their defensive numbers are up, and that would kind of seem as a win-win for both sides. I'm sure LeBron is happy, right? You're moving from, yes, a friend in Anthony Davis that they've been competing with and won a title with, but now you're moving to somebody who is younger, who's an MVP candidate, who can take the ball up and down the court. I think that as good as Anthony Davis was, he had his niche. Great scorer, really good rebounder, great defender. Now you're moving to somebody who's a great ball handler, who can score, assist, rebound, who can do it all. And he kind of becomes maybe the biggest superstar that LeBron has played with, at least recently. LeBron, as great as he is, he's over 40. So is he going to start slowing down? Has it already happened? We say every year, how long is this going to go on? And then all of a sudden he's putting up 30, 40-point games still. But I do think adding somebody like Luka potentially prolongs that peak for LeBron still, maybe pushing it another year or two, because he's going to have to do less now, which is great for him. But I think when you look at these trades, why are these happening? Now, there is a conversation to be had about the money side. All right, Luka was going to be eligible for the Supermax, which was going to be an obscene amount of money. But now that he's been traded, all of a sudden he loses tens of millions of dollars because he's no longer eligible for that Supermax with the team that had him for so many years. Maybe that was it, where the Mavericks just not planning on paying him. So you, instead of losing him for nothing, you potentially get him for something. I don't know. Again, if it's me, if I'm hired as the GM yesterday, or we'll go back before the trade, you're looking at, even if you know you're not going to pay him, right? You're worried about what your luxury tax bill is going to be, and you're trying to think years into the future. Again, Luka's only going to be 26 years old. Why not see if you can call around or tell everybody he's on the table to be traded for? I guarantee you that if you were to reach out to some of those teams that had picks, first-round picks, or high-value guys that you're trying to trade for, you could get a better trade deal than what they ended up getting from the Lakers. Has to be. You're getting a guy on Anthony Davis who's either at the end of his prime or maybe has a year or two left before that decline starts, especially as a big man. You got the worst of 2 first-round picks that were traded away from the Lakers. Like that doesn't seem like enough stuff for me, trading for a top 3, top 5 MVP. Now, if there is medical concerns or there is something that just isn't shared with the rest of the media or the rest of the league or the fan base, then maybe there is something. But on the face of it, with the information that we have now, I think I'm calling every team. I'm calling every single other team. I'm saying, hey, Luka's on the trade block. What are you going to offer me? And I guarantee you're walking away with something more than Anthony Davis and an average pick, right? God forbid. I can't imagine what the Oklahoma City Thunder would look like with Luka, but they've got a plethora of first-round picks, right? I'm asking 10 first-round picks. Give me something. Or 5 first-round picks and 5 swaps. Give me something to rebuild with. I am trading away the future of my franchise for the next 5, 7, 10 years, however long he was going to be there. I need something to rebuild with. Right now, if you're looking at the Mavericks, you're looking at a team that made the finals last year. I would argue dragged to the finals by Luka. And all of a sudden, you lose that guy. Right? If you replaced Luka last year with Anthony Davis, that team does not make the finals. I think you downgrade as a team. Yes, do your defensive numbers improve? Potentially. But I think that ball handling, the superstar ability that you have there, all of that goes down. I also think your marketability, right? Luka, as much as it's talked about, I think having Porzingis who was there, or Nowitzki was there, or Doncic was there, kind of gave you this international superstar, jersey sales, eyeballs on your games. Now you're trading for Anthony Davis, who is an all-star in his own right and potentially a future Hall of Famer, but it doesn't have enough juice for me. So those are some of the decisions that we'll have to see and how it kind of shakes out. But I think the back half of the season is going to be really interesting. And like I said, the Lakers are having short-term success right now. If they continue on this path, they're looking at potentially some home court advantage, maybe a top 4 seed. But they are, I would say, winning this trade at the moment. Now, when you're looking at back to the Jimmy Butler trade, I would say the Warriors are the same thing. The teams that took on these superstars are winning. They are changing how their team is playing. They're changing the trajectory of their season. And these teams that traded away these superstars are looking at what went wrong. Well, maybe you should have held on to the guy that helped your team get so far. I understand that the Jimmy Butler trade was more disagreements and there was more under the surface, and there's been a couple of really good articles that kind of went into detail of what went wrong with these meetings and these personal relationships. But at the end of the day, I probably need more too if I'm Miami and I'm trading away the superstar. If it's not enough for me to continue at the level that I'm at or building for years to come, then I'm holding on and I'm calling somebody else. And you see this happen all the time. You see these guys who get traded who either they want to stick around in the city that they're in and maybe something isn't working, or they don't think they're going to get that next contract. So it's like, how soon can I get out? Well, the team that takes them more often than not, I would say, is the more successful, right? I mean, I would say LeBron's probably the best example of it. But everywhere he has gone, this big MVP candidate, superstar in his own right, the teams win, right? He wins titles in Cleveland, wins titles in Miami, has won a title in LA, but the places that he has left have gone down, right? He leaves Cleveland, all of a sudden Cleveland needs the number one pick, last place in the league. You leave Miami, Miami has not been back to the finals since Jimmy Butler was there. But the common theme, I would say, here is these teams, after these superstars are leaving, take years to rebuild. I would say Utah has probably been the most recent example. You lose Donovan Mitchell, you lose Rudy Gobert. Donovan Mitchell with the Cleveland Cavaliers, I mean, they're looking at number one seed and potentially looking at maybe being a favorite to at least make it to the finals. And you look at Rudy Gobert, who's been with Minnesota, breaking records for how the drought that Minnesota had to get back to the playoffs, winning a playoff matchup. Now they have Anthony Edwards to be able to help that team as well. And Utah's been bottom of the league. So if you don't replace these superstars, or if you're not replacing what the future will be, then you're kind of in purgatory. Now, again, it's only time will tell, right? And maybe even the short term of just this one season might not be enough. But I'll tell you what, if Luka decides to re-sign with the Lakers and he decides that, hey, this is going to be my home for the next 4, 5, 6 years, I guarantee you LeBron will end up probably prolonging his career for an extra year or two to kind of be able to play with that caliber of point guard in Luka. But you're looking at potentially the Lakers now flipping those odds from maybe being a playing team to definitely being top 4, maybe even top 3 of that Western Conference, and maybe pushing the Thunder or pushing the Nuggets and trying to end up getting into the Western Conference Finals. Like that, just like that overnight. Now, as far as the Mavericks go, I think they're in some trouble. I think they mortgage their future for what the GM wants as better defense. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see what the next couple months look like. So that's it for today. Just wanted to kind of brush up on some NBA and what these trades look like. I do think that looking back years into the future, we're going to look at this and probably end up saying that this Luka trade probably changed the trajectory of these two teams and maybe changed what the NBA looked like, because I don't think this is going to be the last big superstar that gets traded. Now that there's some rumors about John Morant getting traded, that would also be massive. But these guys who were drafted these teams, they've put in years onto these teams, and they're leading these teams, whether it be points, assists, rebounds, whatever, or they're just the face of this franchise. I don't know if that goodwill is reciprocated, right? We talked about it's the era of player empowerment, and if I want to go or I want to stay, there's ways for me to do that. But now I think the teams are responding and saying, hey, well, we don't know if we want you here in the future because I don't know if we want to pay you, or I don't know if you do everything that we want you to do. So we'll see. We'll see what it looks like. But that's all for this week. Catch on tonight. Like I said, watch the Luka versus the Mavericks game. I think that's going to be good. We'll see how the fans respond. Dorian Finney-Smith, who was a Maverick with Luka, has already said, hey, now that he's with the Lakers, hey, we got your back, no problem. Even if there's a negative reaction from the fans, which would surprise me because I thought he was a fan favorite, but we'll have to see how the fans respond. But that's it. Like, subscribe, everything else, follow us. We're on Apple and Spotify, just For the Record Sports, and we'll see you later.